I turned 48 on a gray, silent Thursday morning, the kind of morning that feels like it's holding something back, hiding some truth behind the clouds. I remember waking up that day with the strange certainty that something in my life was about to break. I didn't know what. I didn't know when. But the feeling was there, like static under my skin. My wife, Hannah, didn't congratulate me that morning, not because she forgot, but because she was still asleep, fully dressed, sprawled sideways across the bed with her phone gripped in her hand, like it was the most important thing in her life. It used to be me. Now it was the phone. I'd been married to Hannah for 22 years. We'd been together since college, back when she was wild in the harmless way, laughing too loudly at campus parties, but always coming home with me. We built a life together, raised 3 kids together, survived a recession, a miscarriage, and 2 layoffs. I thought we were unbreakable, but the truth is, you never know. Your marriage is dying until the rot reaches the surface. That morning, it was already close. COVID had done something to Hannah, something I still don't fully understand. She works in marketing, and during lockdown, she was stuck at home with endless Zoom meetings and endless snacks. She gained weight. Not a lot, but enough for her to notice. Enough for her to spiral into insecurity. When restrictions ended, she told me she needed to get her life back, and I supported her. I always tried to. We downloaded Meetup together, scrolling through local groups, hiking, too many bugs, yoga, too many flexible women, book clubs, too boring. Then she found it. A local recreational baseball group, co-ed, casual. Just for fun, the page said. Except the pictures told a different story. Mostly men. Fit. Loud. Drinking before, during, and after games. A fun group. The kind of fun that had a smell of trouble, even through the screen. I need something like this, Hannah said. Something active. Something new. Are you sure baseball is your thing? I asked. I can make it my thing, she said, smiling at herself in the mirror in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months. And that's how it started. After her first game, she came home exhausted, red-faced, and limping slightly. How was it? I asked. She flopped onto the sofa dramatically. Awful. I'm too old for this. And Craig won't shut up. Craig? This guy on the team. Thinks he's God's gift to women. Always flirting. Always showing off. I can't stand him. She rolled her eyes so hard, I actually believed she hated him. But here's the thing about my wife. When she talks about someone too much, it's never because she hates them. She said Craig had a problem with alcohol, that he bragged about trying every drug on the planet, that he was rude to other men and too friendly to every woman. I should have paid more attention right there. But I didn't. Because marriages don't fall apart in a single moment. They fall apart slowly, like snow melting, and you don't notice until the flood hits. A week later, Hannah came home smelling like marijuana. Hannah, I said, you smell like a college dorm. She laughed it off. Oh, I was just hanging out with the team. They all smoke after games. I didn't want to be rude. Except, Hannah is the one who lectures our kids about drugs. She once grounded our oldest son for a month because he joked about trying weed in high school. So why was she suddenly not wanting to be rude? I brushed it off. People change. Stress changes people. I convinced myself it wasn't serious. Later that night, when she kissed me, I tasted tobacco on her lips. You smoked? I asked gently. No, she said instantly. Too instantly. That was lie number 1, and lies never come alone. Thanksgiving arrived, and Hannah wasn't home. She called an hour before dinner, her voice shaky, frantic. "Car trouble. I'm on the side of the road. I'm so sorry I can't make it." Our kids, all three of them, shared the same look. Confusion, disappointment, fear maybe. Because even they sensed something had changed. After dinner, our middle son whispered, "Dad, is Mom okay? You guys aren't fighting, right?" I lied to him. Everything's fine. But nothing was fine. A few days later, I checked our shared bank account and noticed something alarming. The balance was unusually low. 2 withdrawals, $600 and then another $600. "Hannah?" I asked when she got home. "Where's the money?" "Oh," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "I lent it to a friend." "Which friend? You don't know them." Another lie. Her voice was wrong, her eyes were wrong, even her breathing was wrong. That was when I realized I was losing her, piece by piece. Smoking, lying, sneaking around, financial secrets. But the worst was still ahead. One afternoon, I came home early, and there it was. A vintage Pontiac GTO, 1964, parked in front of my house like it belonged there. Black, loud, expensive, and absolutely unfamiliar. My stomach tightened. Before I could react, the back door slammed. Someone jumped over the fence. I heard footsteps pounding down the alley. Then the smell hit me. Weed, thick enough to choke on. I stormed inside. "Hannah? Who was here?" "No one," she said. "Why are you always assuming the worst?" "Because someone just ran out of our yard." "You're being paranoid," she snapped. "Stop trying to control me." That was the moment the ground under my feet cracked. Her behavior got worse. More weed, more secrets, more late nights. So I did the only thing I could. "Hannah," I said, "this ends now. Either the constant smoke and this baseball lifestyle stop, or we're done." Her nostrils flared. Her eyes went cold. "Oh, please," she spat. "Grow up. I should have divorced you years ago." And she stormed out. I sat there, fists clenched, shaking, not with anger, but with the crushing understanding that my marriage was slipping away, and she didn't even care enough to pretend. I spent the next morning preparing a stack of divorce papers, not to file, just to shock her. When she came home and saw the documents on the table, she froze. "No," she whispered. You're not serious." She picked up the papers and threw them across the room. "What is wrong with you?" she yelled, voice breaking. "It's what you wanted," I said, quietly. "You said so last night." "I didn't mean that. I was angry." Her eyes filled with tears, but not the kind you cry when you love someone. The kind you cry when your world is finally catching up to your lies. Our daughter came home then and found us standing in silence. "Mom," she said gently, "Dad doesn't deserve this. We see everything." And that broke Hannah. She crumpled into a chair, sobbing loudly, messily, dramatically, like a performance. I didn't comfort her. I couldn't. The next morning she made breakfast. Real breakfast. Bacon, eggs, toast, coffee, fruit. The whole thing. She hadn't cooked like that in years. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "For everything, for the lies, for the stress, for the fights. I want to try again. Please, just give me 1 month to fix myself." And because I'm weak, or maybe because I still loved her, I agreed. 1 month, I said, but no more secrets. And she nodded, too quickly, because she already had secrets planned. That night she sat next to me, holding my hand. "I've been stressed," she said. "Work is crazy. COVID ruined my head. The weed helps me not panic. And, I swear, no one was on the backyard that day." Lie. I felt it. I tasted it in her voice. But I let it go, because I didn't yet have proof. And when I finally found it, it would destroy everything. I watched Riley disappear through the pub's front door, the last echo of his steps swallowed by the noise of the crowd. And just like that, I was alone. The match carried on in front of me, but without Riley's commentary, without his sarcastic jokes about the referee, the whole atmosphere suddenly felt thinner. I took a slow sip of my beer, telling myself to relax, to enjoy the rest of the game, to stop overthinking the warning he'd left me with. A suspicious athlete watching me. Really? Riley sometimes exaggerated things. Maybe he'd mistaken the guy for someone else. Maybe the staring was nothing more than a drunk man zoning out in my direction. The pub was packed. People bumped shoulders, spilled drinks, argued over scores. One more stranger wasn't going to be the end of the world. But then, in the reflection of the big TV mounted on the wall, I saw him. Tall, broad-shouldered. That particular type of fitness bro collagen-stuffed face that made him look both proud and stupid at the same time. He wasn't watching the game. He was watching me. I straightened in my seat, jaw tightening. Maybe Riley was right after all. I grabbed my beer and tried to focus on the field, on the perfect pass, on the run, run, run shouts erupting around me. The Brisbane Crocs were finally pushing toward the end zone, and the entire pub roared as the quarterback dodged a tackle. I felt myself getting swept up in the energy, my earlier tension slowly fading. That's when I heard a chair scrape across the floor. Too close. Too deliberate. The guy Riley had warned me about sat down across from me without asking, without hesitation, as if the seat had always belonged to him. He leaned back, crossing his tattooed arms, looking at me with the lazy arrogance of someone who had no concept of boundaries. "You're Mason, right?" he asked. I didn't answer. I kept my eyes on the screen. If he wanted attention, he could choke on silence instead. But he wasn't going to go away. "I've been with your wife." The sentence landed like a punch to the throat. I blinked. Slowly. Just once. No reaction. Not yet. If he was lying, reacting would feed him. If he wasn't, reacting would feed him even more. So I kept watching the match. The crowd erupted again. Another good drive, another close call. My heartbeat matched the rhythm of the cheering, but not because of the game anymore. "I'm talking to you," he said, voice sliding into a taunt. "Your wife, Lila. Cute girl, dark hair, little freckles." I tightened my grip on my glass, but I didn't look at him. "Met her last week," he continued, clearly enjoying the sound of his own voice. "Friday night. You know, you really should keep a better eye on her." My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. He was lying. Had to be. Lila would never... But the way he said it, the casual confidence. No, I refused to let him plant that seed. Still, 1,000 images tried to force themselves into my mind. Lila's smile, Lila's hair falling over her shoulder, Lila leaving the house that Friday saying she was going for a late walk to clear her head. I told myself it meant nothing. I told myself I trusted my wife. I told myself this stranger was nothing but a drunk provocateur looking for a fight. But then he leaned forward, elbows on the table, lowering his voice to a smug whisper. She didn't say no. A single spark lit in my chest, anger, sharp and bright. But I swallowed it. I inhaled through my nose, exhaled through my teeth, and forced myself not to break the glass in my hand. Instead, I went back to the game. Because if I faced him, If I let myself look at him, I wasn't sure what I would do. He waited. He expected a reaction. When I didn't give him one, he scoffed. "You're really going to pretend you didn't hear me?" I finally moved, just a fraction, lifting my beer and taking a long sip. The bitterness burned down my throat, grounding me. He laughed, a mocking, disbelieving laugh. "Sheesh, man. You're calmer than I expected. I tell most husbands I'm sleeping with their wife, they at least throw a punch." He paused. "You want to see pictures?" That was it. I set my beer down, slowly, deliberately, aligning it perfectly with the damp ring it had left on the table. My fingers released the glass with controlled precision. Then I finally looked at him. Blue eyes, smug grin, stupid backward cap. He thought he had the upper hand. He thought he had power over me. But he didn't know me. He didn't know what I did for a living. He didn't know how many men like him I'd dismantled in court. "I'm ignoring you," I said calmly, "because the game is more interesting than whatever nonsense you're spewing." His grin faltered. I went back to the screen, letting that response hang in the air like a slap. For the first time since he sat down, he didn't speak. He just stared. The silence stretched long enough to feel like a rope tightening between us, until the crowd erupted again, and the noise broke the atmosphere. Then, finally, he spoke. "You'll regret brushing me off, man." But his voice lacked its earlier swagger. Good. I picked up my beer again. He wouldn't be the last man tonight who regretted something. The third quarter of the match blasted back onto the screens, but the energy inside the pub had changed. Maybe it was just me. Maybe it was the guy sitting across from me, this puffed-up, overconfident, wannabe athlete who shifted from arrogance to irritation the moment I called his bluff. Either way, the air felt heavier now, louder in some places, quieter in others. The noise of clinking glasses and cheering fans blurred into a distant hum. The guy exhaled sharply through his nose, cracked his knuckles, and leaned back in his chair as if preparing himself for round two. "So that's how you want to play it?" he muttered. I didn't bother answering. I watched the replay on screen, a clean tackle, a perfect block, the kind of disciplined teamwork that made my chest swell with pride. I loved football. Loved the strategy, the precision, the controlled aggression. Tonight, I needed all of that control. The guy, this self-proclaimed lover of my wife, shifted closer, dragging his chair an inch nearer to the table. His knee bumped mine. I didn't flinch. "All right then," he said, voice rising just enough for me to hear it over the cheering crowd. "Let's talk details." I finally turned to face him fully, resting my elbows on the table, leveling him with a calm, almost bored expression. "You want attention so badly," I said. "Go buy yourself a mirror." He blinked, thrown off for half a second, just long enough to be satisfying. "Cute," he said, regaining his smirk. "But I'm serious. I saw you two last Friday, holding hands, laughing. She kissed you on the cheek before going into that shop. I recognized her tonight. That's when I put it together." A cold thread slid down my spine, not because I believed him, but because he got that detail right. Lila had kissed me on the cheek that night. Anyone standing nearby could have seen it. "Let me guess," I said slowly. "You followed her inside? Hit her with your best line? She ignored you, and your fragile ego cracked?" He stiffened. Good. I'd found the bruise. "I'm not the type women ignore," he growled. Oh, they definitely ignore you, I replied. They probably cross the street to avoid you. He slammed his palm against the table, startling a couple sitting nearby. I didn't move. Inside, I felt something harden, something sharp and glass-like. He was starting to crack. Look, he hissed, leaning in until his breath brushed my cheek. I'm not lying. She flirted with me, told me she was bored at home, told me her husband didn't satisfy her anymore. I tilted my head, studying him. There it was. His strategy, a classic manipulator's tactic. Throw accusations like grenades and wait for the explosion. But he underestimated the people in my life. He underestimated my wife. He underestimated me. You're wasting your time, I said. And mine. I leaned back, stretching my arms casually. But sure, I added with a shrug. Let's test your story. What's her middle name? His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. He tried to recover with a scoff. Middle name? Who cares about middle names? Anyone who's actually slept with someone, I replied. A few people nearby turned their heads. He noticed. His cheeks reddened. Not a blush, but anger. The kind of anger a man feels when he realizes the ground beneath him isn't solid after all. You think you're clever, don't you? He spat. I don't think, I said. I know. He let out a bitter laugh, then leaned back, as if reassessing his approach. His jaw worked side to side, his leg bounced under the table. So you're a comedian now. Great. He paused. But you still haven't answered my question. What question? How does it feel? He said slowly, enunciating each word with venom. Knowing your wife prefers someone like me. I smiled. A small smile, a measured smile, a deadly smile. It feels, I said calmly, like I'm talking to a delusional amateur athlete with more protein powder than brain cells. A few people chuckled. He heard them. His face twitched. He leaned in again, lowering his voice to a dangerous whisper. You're going to regret talking to me like that. Already regretting talking to you at all, I said. His chair screeched as he pushed himself up halfway, fists tightening. A shadow crossed his face, as if he was deciding whether he could get away with punching me in the middle of a crowded pub. I didn't look away, didn't blink. Then, unexpectedly, he sat back down, breathing hard through his nose. He rubbed his forehead, trying to regain a calm he clearly didn't have. Fine, he finally said. Then answer me this. Why was she smiling at me when I texted her last night? My heart thudded once, heavy and low. He had her number? No, that couldn't be. He could be bluffing. He had to be bluffing. Because if he wasn't... How about you show me the message? I asked. He smirked, pulling his phone from his pocket. He held it like a trophy, hovering just out of my reach. Then he locked the screen and slipped it back into his jeans. Nah, he said. You'll see it soon enough. The crowd roared. Our team scored. People jumped to their feet. Beer spilled. Cheers shook the walls. But I sat perfectly still. The match wasn't what mattered anymore. He had planted a seed, and even though I hated myself for it, I could feel that seed pushing roots into my mind. Lila was faithful. Lila was loyal. Lila loved me. I knew that. But doubt. Doubt was a poison that didn't ask for permission. You're lying, I said finally, my voice low. We'll see, he replied. He stood up slowly, chair scraping away, his eyes never leaving mine. You're not the only one going home to her tonight. I felt something flare, white hot in my chest. Then he winked, turned, and walked away into the crowd. The pub's noise returned in full force, but it all felt distant, like I was underwater, like everything was muffled and slow. My pulse hammered behind my ribs as I tried to steady my breathing. I didn't know his name yet, but I would. And before this night was over, I would make him regret every word he said. I stayed sitting there for a long moment, staring at the empty space where that man, whoever he truly was, had been. The pub buzzed around me, but everything sounded distant, distorted, like I was hearing it through a wall of water. My pulse throbbed in my neck, steady and heavy. The last thing he said looped in my mind like a curse I couldn't shake. "You're not the only one going home to her tonight." It was a lie. It had to be. But the thing about lies is that they don't need to be true to do damage. They just need to be sharp. I forced myself to take a slow breath, then another, grounding myself in the familiar rhythm of the pub, the clatter of glasses, the roar of the crowd, the bark of the bartender calling for last orders. The Broncos sealed their win with one last brilliant play, and the entire place erupted. Normally, I'd be on my feet with everyone else. Tonight, the victory barely registered. Finally, I pushed back my chair and stood. Joe, the bartender, caught my eye. He gave me a quick nod, not the usual friendly acknowledgement, but a concerned one. He must have noticed the tension at my table earlier. Or maybe he just knew something was wrong from the way I looked. "You good, mate?" he called out. "Yeah," I lied. "Just beat." He didn't buy it, but he let it go. Outside, the night air was cool, sharp, grounding. I inhaled deeply, letting it clear out the toxic fog that conversation had left behind. The street was quieter than usual for a game night, the traffic already thinning. My footsteps echoed against the pavement as I walked toward my car. I pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over Lila's name. I didn't call. I couldn't. Not yet. Not sounding like this. Not with doubt gnawing at my insides. Instead, I drove home. The drive felt endless, the streetlights passing like shards of light slicing through the darkness. Every time my mind replayed his smirk, the pit in my stomach tightened. What if he had texted her? What if he'd found some way to weasel into her life? What if she'd replied out of politeness, and he mistook it for interest? I gripped the steering wheel harder. No, Lila wasn't like that. She never had been. When I finally pulled into our driveway, the sight of our home, warm lights glowing softly behind the curtains, should have calmed me. It didn't. The house felt different, like I was walking into uncertain territory rather than familiar comfort. I stepped inside quietly. She was in the living room, curled up on the sofa, wearing one of my oversized shirts, hair messy from the long day, her glasses slipping down her nose as she read. She looked up the moment she heard the door. Her smile hit me like sunlight. "Hey, you're back earlier than I expected. How was the game?" That smile, that gentle voice, that effortless warmth, it shattered the doubt inside me like glass. "It was good," I said, hanging my keys. "Broncos won." She closed her book and sat up straighter, giving me her full attention the way she always did. "You okay? You look tense." For a second, I considered hiding it, burying the whole night and pretending nothing happened. But I'd never lied to her, and I wasn't going to start now. "I ran into someone," I said slowly. "A guy, tall, built like a wannabe athlete. He said some things. About you." Her brows knitted, confusion replacing concern. "About me? What things?" I inhaled sharply. Here it was, the moment where everything could break apart if I said the wrong words. He claimed he knows you, that he's been with you, that he has your number. The shock on her face was immediate and unmistakable. What? Who? Wait. She pushed her glasses up, thinking quickly. Was he wearing a gray hoodie? Kind of shaved sides? Thinks he's a gift to the world? I froze. Yeah, I said. That's him. She rolled her eyes so hard, I thought they might get stuck. Oh my God, that idiot. I didn't think he'd actually try something like this. A rush of cold confusion washed over me. You know him? Barely. He tried to flirt with me when I was leaving the grocery store last week. I ignored him. Then he followed me to the parking lot and tried again. My fists clenched. He followed you? She nodded, annoyed more than afraid. I told him I wasn't interested. I didn't give him anything. No number, no attention. He got irritated and said something like, "You'll come around." I thought that was it. My pulse pounded, for a different reason now. Anger, hot and fierce. So he's been making up stories. Obviously, he's probably insecure enough to create this entire fantasy relationship in his head. She stood up and crossed the room toward me, her tone softening. I'm sorry you had to deal with him. Are you okay? She touched my chest gently. Warm, familiar, grounding. And the moment her hand met my skin through my shirt, something inside me finally relaxed. I'm fine, I said, quietly. I just didn't like how it made me feel. She stepped closer, sliding her arms around my waist, resting her forehead against my chest. I'm yours, she whispered. Only yours. Always have been. The words hit deeper than anything that wannabe athlete could have thrown at me. I wrapped my arms around her, pulling her in, holding her tightly, not because I doubted her, but because the thought of losing her, even for a second, had shaken me more than I wanted to admit. After a long moment, she leaned back slightly and smiled up at me. So, she said teasingly, should I send him a message telling him to stop dreaming? I smirked. Oh, I'm already planning to handle that tomorrow. She laughed softly. Just don't end up on the news. No promises, I said. She shook her head and tugged me toward the couch. Come on, I made tea. Tell me everything. And so I did. Every detail, every word, every smirk the guy threw my way. She listened, eyes narrowing at the right moments, sighing at others, squeezing my hand whenever my voice grew tight. By the time I finished, the tension had drained from my body. And when she leaned into me, curling against my side, I felt the last of the doubt finally dissolve. What that man said didn't matter anymore. His lies, his arrogance, his attempts to get under my skin, none of it mattered. Because at the end of the night, I didn't go home to a fantasy. I went home to her, to the woman who chose me every day, to the life we'd built together. And whoever that guy was, he had no idea what kind of mistake he'd made crossing into our world. But he would. Soon.